Hello and welcome. You're with us here on Business Today. I'm Aabha Bakaya, taking stock of all the market action for you this morning. And yesterday, remember, markets looked like they were somewhat stabilizing. Today, of course, we're continuing to see the backdrop of all that's playing out in Iran. That's not going away anytime soon. So while that uncertainty continues, however, we're still seeing a decent sort of setup at this point of time. We're not seeing any kind of mass negative selling and just a marginal tick in the green, in fact. So it looks like markets have priced this in for now. Let me also welcome in Shailendra Bhatnagar, who's with us as always. Shail, 24770 on the Nifty. So it's not exactly looking pretty. We have seen some selling. We are under 24,600, but at the same time, we're not seeing a massive rout.
Good morning, Aabha. A warm welcome to all of us viewers who are joining us on this last day of the week. Aabha, what is a fact is that Nifty is improving. It was 160 points down as far as the GIFT Nifty was pointing out, but for the moment we seem to be better off. Forget what the Nifty is trying to tell us. There are signs of improvement broadly. What we should focus on is individual stories which are giving an opportunity on the long side. Look at the capital market side, look at metals, look at PSU banks, look at individual stocks in the pharma and the healthcare space. All of them are outperforming, and that is where our concentration should be on long side trades. Nifty will settle down, things will improve. Look at ITBs, and if you're really smart, look at Nifty Bs.
All right, let's take a look at some of the stocks in focus this morning as well. And we've, of course, continuing to track those OMCs on the back of all the developments. The US has, of course, issued a license allowing Russian oil sales to India. So that's a positive for OMCs this morning. We've got Moil in the news. They've raised prices on manganese ore. So that's good news coming in for them. Other stocks in news this morning. Again, on positive triggers, we have Amber Enterprises with HDFC Mutual Fund buying 2.7 lakh shares. That's on Amber Enterprises. I'll bring that stock up. Sami Hotels, the company is to acquire 70% stake in Rare India for 47.39 crore. That's a positive too. DCX Systems, the company has bagged an order worth 68 crores from HAL. Keep an eye on those defense names as well. They continue to be in focus for a variety of reasons, but primarily, of course, for all of the action around Iran and the continued focus on defense as well. So that's on defense. We've got Associated Alcohols Companies Board is meeting on the March 12th. That's to consider a conversion of warrants into equity shares. So that's that one for you. Afcon's infrastructure as well. Goldman Sachs Bank Europe SC ODI has bought 9.7 lakh shares for 276 rupees per share. So that's Afcon's. Fractal revenue has come in at 850 crores versus 799 crores. EBITDA is up at 93 crores versus 63 crores. Those are ballpark numbers I've given. And HCL Tech. Vama Sundari Investments, Delhi, has bought about 1.32 lakh shares in HCL Tech. These are likely to be positive triggers as well, up 0.6% in pre-open. In Jindal Stainless, JSL Overseas Holding has bought 6.4 lakh shares. So let's pull that one up as well. Meanwhile, in MSP Steel, Jagran Vyapar has bought 8.97 lakh shares as well. So I'm just pulling up some of these for you. No reaction on Jindal right now. We've got also Bharat Forge has clarified that there are no ongoing negotiations or undisclosed material events related to North American Class 8 truck market news. No operations, financials have been impacted, so that's neutral on Bharat Forge. Bajaj Auto will be in the news. KTM AG prepays all dues under facility agreement to BAIH BV, which is neutral, but keep an eye on Bajaj. And SBI Cards company has declared an interim dividend of 2.5 rupees per share. Record date is set for March 11th. Wipro has also appointed Ms. Laurie Marie Miller as an additional director in the capacity of independent director for 5 years. That's effective April 1st. That's the latest coming in on Wipro. Meanwhile, on PB Fintech, Yashish Dahiya and Alok Bansal are likely to reduce their holdings, selling approximately 1.1% stake. I mean, no incremental action is really expected on the stock, but that's the latest news coming in on PB Fintech. Meanwhile, on banks, let's pull up Bank of Baroda. The bank has allotted long-term green infra bonds worth 10,000 crore rupees. Again, not much of a market action expected, but that's the latest coming in on BOB. And just a couple of hotel stocks in the news that I just want to mark out because we're constantly seeing traction there. More expansion buzz from Lemon Tree as well as from Advent Hotels, and this is ongoing. We've been watching that, so keep an eye on some of those pockets. Shell?
Yeah, Aabha, I think I'll also look at how movement is coming into stocks like BEL, Coal India in particular. Please keep an eye out on this, and the entire defense space, including shipbuilders, Mausgaon Dock, Garden Reach, Cochin Shipyard, from the electronic side, BEL, and to some extent even HAL, although I'm not very fond of that one. So this is the segment that I'm looking at. From the infrastructure side, look at Cummins. From the healthcare side, Glenmark, Apollo hospitals are doing very well on charts. So that's the phase that I am in at this point of time.
Okay. GE Shipping has contracted to buy a second-hand Kamsarmax dry bulk carrier. So pull up GE Shipping. We might actually see some action on that. Standard Engineering has entered a distribution agreement with API Pharma for the Middle East. GE Shipping seeing a little uptick. TCS saying advanced talks for more India data centers. So keep an eye on TCS as well. Tata Elxsi, the company has launched a DevStudio.ai, a multi-agent A-Spice aligned Gen AI platform. So Tata Elxsi. So we've got TCS, Wipro, Tata Elxsi. So some of these IT names. We've got some of the shipping names in news, Hotel Pack, for different reasons, but a lot of buzz across some of these. Dr. Reddy's has got their EIR reports from US FDA for their Srikakulam facility, which is a positive for DRL as well. All right, so lots of different stocks to continue to track there. One more on Zaggle. They've signed a 3-year agreement with Blue Star to provide Zaggle's Save employee expense management and benefits platform. So we can keep an eye and see whether the stock reacts to that as well. So lots of independent stocks in news at this point of time. And markets clearly are reading into that. They've actually priced in what's happening in terms of geopolitics, and currently they are looking for individual cues right now in terms of leadership on the index or in terms of a theme or a trend on sectorally. Still waiting to see. But it's really looking a little steady, still down about 0.5% now in pre-open. Shell 24656. We are anticipating below 24,600 on opening, but it's not a massive cut right now, continuing from what we've seen earlier in the week. Mazga also, remember, they've clarified on a potential massive order win. So lots of news around Mazgaon, so keep that one on your radar. And aviation stocks, we've also been tracking on that potential hit. Indigo, again, UBS has cut the target for Indigo coming in now. They've also been dealing with a whole other bunch of issues. SpiceJet in the news again for all the wrong reasons. We've had reports coming in this morning on really how long is SpiceJet expected to survive. So aviation is not looking particularly good this morning. Shell.
909, ladies and gentlemen, the pre-open has settled. Nifty in the first tick will show a 100-point gap down. Let's wait for the first 15 minutes to lapse. But for the moment, there is pain in HDFC Bank, there's pain in ICICI Bank, both down about 1% each. Weakness on Bharti Airtel, Infosys, SBI, and of course there is M&M, as also Axis Bank, Indigo and L&T. These are all Nifty shares which are settled in the red as far as opening ticks are concerned. Keep an eye out on L&T. Aabha and I were discussing it yesterday. This is something which is available around its 200-day DMA. All that is broken in the Gulf will one day be constructed. About 30-33% of L&T's fresh order book has always been coming from the Mid East. So keep an eye out. Something that was available for at 4,500 less than 2 weeks ago is now going begging at 4,015. The market is giving you a discount, ladies and gentlemen. Don't stop your shopping trip.
Okay. All right, let's listen in to Ramdev Agrawal on the markets in this exclusive conversation that we had with him. A lot of key insights here. Listen in.
Unless something horribly goes wrong, it is very tough to push the market again lower than whatever it traded in. It looks very bad that a fight is on, but markets are moving up. But markets are very selfless, very emotionless, and it's only about economic engine.
So have they moved on from Iran already?
I mean, for whatever we know, it has.
What about, sir, the retail investor strategy at this point in time? Since you're saying markets have just completely traded on this war at this point in time, what should they do?
So, Sakshi, forget about retail investor. Investor's job is to stand by its own convictions in good time as well as bad time. Good time, everybody stands by. But bad time, these are challenging times when you have to bring patience to work and don't bother too much about. And luckily, Indian economy is not directly hit. Indirectly through the fuel for petrol and little inflation. Yes, but it's temporary, maybe a month or so. But on the whole, Indian economy is in a fine shape, fantastic shape. You just saw Q3 numbers, 7.8%, and it's surging, it's picking up steam. So I would think that we are in good shape. Broadly, not that much impacted. Yes, there will be some marginal impact. So I would think that this is a time to bring patience and see, corrected market is the best time to start investing. It's a boon to the investor rather than kind of a challenge.
All right, Mayuresh Joshi also joining us. Mayuresh, good morning. Just a couple of minutes to go before we open for the day. Markets, of course, continuing weakness, but seem to have stabilized somewhat at these lower levels. What's your take on how things are evolving?
Morning, Aabha. Morning, Shell. No, I think the volatility will still persist depending on the news flow on the geopolitical front. However, having said that, I think the respite that we are getting on crude, the morning statement which has come through the Treasury Secretary that India will be allowed to buy 30 days of Russian crude, and I'm pretty sure that Russian crude will come at a discount to where Brent is at this juncture, is obviously a huge respite. Because whatever said and done, from a macro perspective, I think crude is the only niggling worry for the Indian economy, both in terms of how the CAD will get placed and how inflation will get placed if this gets long drawn. So at least a temporary respite coming through, which is good news for the Indian economy.
You know, Aabha, the more things change, the more they remain the same. The market was dying for an Indo-US trade deal. That is going to happen on a better rate. We were not allowed to buy Russian crude. Only India-bound ships are moving from the Straits of Hormuz. For those who always question why the government is not taking sides and keeping silent on something that has been short of India's maritime boundary or something that we have not made public, this is the result. You always see a positive outcome of zipping your mouth when it's most necessary and then delivering in terms of physical output. Only Indian refineries will be working, and that's a very, very big plus.
We're talking about the refiners and the OMCs, etc., but oil and gas hasn't been on anyone's buy radar in a while. So, I don't know what to make of it here. Would it still be any kind of a near-term or trading kind or hedge or any kind of play, or is it kind of irrelevant at this point?
No, so our belief has always been that it's always a swing trade in the sector as a whole, because if crude prices start spiking up, upstream companies probably benefit. What happens to the marketing margins of downstream companies? Suddenly, I think if you probably get some element of respite in terms of crude probably going lower, then there is expectation that downstream companies will do well. What about the supplies in terms of LNG? The long-term supplies, force majeures have been declared by a lot of LNG manufacturers in Qatar, which are one of the largest suppliers as far as LNG is concerned, and Indian LNG basket in general. And therefore, force majeures announced by a lot of companies as well. So I think it's a lot of news flow, which is very, very dynamic as we speak. And therefore, I think the sector as a whole and the sub-segments within the sector are always good trading bets. But structurally, I think it is dependent on a lot of news flow which is outside our control, which makes it a little bit difficult to make a base case scenario.
9:16, ladies and gentlemen, two stocks that need your attention are LT Foods, a basmati rice exporter to the Middle East. Top gainer at this point of time, 8% higher on the NSE 500. The entire refinery basket is doing very well, led by MRPL, Chennai Petro from the PSU side. Oil marketing companies, Oil Explorers, ONGC and Oil India in good shape. And there is no stopping GE Shipping. Mayuresh, good morning, a very warm welcome. We've been in communication over the last evening. A view that you might have on a record high on GE Shipping?
Morning, Shell. No, I think shipping rates are going through the roof as we speak, and therefore I think one must really understand how the model of GE Shipping probably plays out. There are some long drawn-out contracts, and there are contracts in terms of the spot market as well. So I think specifically in terms of their spot trades, since the rates have gone up significantly, I think they'll obviously make a killing as far as that is concerned. And then when it probably comes to how long this will last, if you probably look at the kind of ships that they probably operate and the expectations in terms of the EBITDA performance itself, I think it has to be a steady state show. The management has always been very, very realistic in terms of the entire shipping market per se. But currently, I think the scenario that we are probably going through with spot rates probably going through the roof, I think it is getting sentimentally reflected in the G shipping schedule.
Okay, markets have opened. Some move on IT this morning. L&T is taking a breather. We've got a fractal that's moving as expected. Some amount of news coming in there. DCX system, again, news-based buying coming in. Nifty is down about 0.5% right now. On DCX, I just want to quickly pull that up because it's a nice 4-5% move that we're seeing on that one. We've got Satish Chandra Doshi selling about 6.8 lakh shares for 178.69 per share. So that's the move on that one. Overall, market's down about 0.5%. Nifty Bank is trending, seeing a fair bit of pressure. Advanced decline ratio is fairly even. Karnataka Bank is seeing a little bit of action this morning, up about 4% on that one. Just trying to track any news trigger there. We've also seen LT Foods buzzing. That one's moving higher. Ramkey Infra, as these are some of the names in the broader markets. We're seeing some amount of action in. And we were talking about Mazgaon Talk, so that's of course moving as well. And IT, as I mentioned as a theme overall, Infi is looking good. Infi is up about 1% or so right now. Shell?
Yes, that's right. IT, ladies and gentlemen, as we've been pointing out for the last 3 sessions, provides a very, very good opportunity for sensible long-term buyers to step into the ITB's ETF, but please also consult your financial advisor at this point of time. Broader markets, well, it's a Friday and nothing much is expected, but the IT index is up 1.3%. We'll request Mayuresh to step in on the sector. About 1,000 stocks in the green, 1246 in the red, so bears still dominate the Lal Street, but all-time highs, well, surprise, Kirloskar Engineering, 1495. Again, the infra space that we've been pointing out from the last 15 odd days. But Mayuresh, a view on ITBs, the ETF at about 33, 34, maybe something that you could offer in terms of a medium to a long-term outlook?
So I think looks good. I think two reasons, Shell. I think the entire AI theme, I think a little bit overblown as we speak. Yes, what we are hearing in terms of Anthropic, what we have been hearing in terms of the Claude ecosystem, I think all that is very, very disruptive and it will continue to be disruptive as more products and launches keep on happening over the next few weeks and quarters. However, I think from a structural perspective, I think in terms of the existing order flows that the IT companies will receive, they're going to receive that at least over the next few quarters. It's not that the business is probably going to shut down as we speak. And therefore, I think the data sets that are probably required, the clean data sets, our processing and outsourcing firms do a damn good job at that. The second aspect in terms of a lot of businesses which are probably in the medium term range in terms of revenue growth and earnings growth will still not have full blown AI budgets. They will be having a gradual transition in terms of AI as well. And therefore, that is the advantage that probably comes onto the table for outsourcers who are probably looking at ensuring that the companies probably achieve their strategic objectives in a certain manner. And therefore, I think it does make sense for long-term investors to probably look at the sector. Obviously, it's very dynamic. You'll probably need to review it every year in terms of how the progress is being made selectively within components of this sector as well. And therefore, companies which probably do a better job in terms of adopting AI agents across their application layers and across their enterprise models as well might stand out to be winners. So from a selective perspective, a little bit selective is warranted. But structurally, I think from a price damage perspective, the worst is probably over for the sector.
All right. I think let's look at some of the smaller themes in the sense, something like a retail, hotels, hospitals, some of these pockets, Mayuresh, because perhaps there could be some interesting picks over there.
Oh, absolutely, Aabha. And our sense is that three broad themes where earnings in Q3 have probably stood out might continue doing well. So one is selective on BFSI, which includes both private, public, as well as NBFCs. The second aspect is obviously consumer discretionary, as you pointed out, which can be pockets of retail in India, where I think the growth might be significantly better as we speak. A few of the other consumer discretionaries and durable stocks as well, which might continue doing well. And third, I think select engineering stroke infra names, where I think the earnings growth has remained very strong in Q3. And largely, I think whatever happens, even if one assumes a worst case scenario in terms of the Middle East conflict actually getting drawn on, rather than a few weeks or a few months, their business model do not take the hit in terms of what is probably happening globally, both from an inflationary perspective as far as input costs are concerned and domestic demand remaining strong. So if you probably look at these pockets as I'm discussing, I think certain stocks, leadership stocks within these pockets can continue doing well. And in a market like this, I think where there is a lot of fear and where there is a lot of apprehension, I think probably a good time to probably start building your watch list around these sectors.
$9:24, ladies and gentlemen. What we are waiting for is the first 15 minutes. So far, the Nifty, in sync with what the GIFT Nifty was telling us, is down 129 points. And all frontline stocks seem to be in a pause to negative mode. That's more or less expected. Let's look at what the pullers and draggers are at the moment on the Nifty. Reliance, again, the refinery space is doing very well, ladies and gentlemen. Reliance is also available at 200-day DMA. Record what I'm telling you. Infosys, 15 points to the Nifty. TCS, HCL Tech, Tech Mahindra, all of them contributing between 4 and 9 points to Nifty's green total. What is pulling it down? ICICI Bank and HDFC Bank, 55 and 42 points respectively. L&T, Bharti Airtel, Indigo and Maruti are the ones that are also in pain. Indigo, fresh 52-week low, rising crude oil prices, disruptions in flights to the Middle East, to Europe are the pain points. But at this point of time, strength coming into the defense space. Maybe Mayuresh can comment on what he likes amongst shipbuilders, Masgaon, Garden Reach and Kochi.
Also doing well. And again, Shell, I think the expectations in terms of a big order, the submarine order expected for Mazgaon is something that is keeping Mazgaon right onto the toes. And let's be very honest. I think the kind of order book that all these three have probably hold them in good stead over the next few years. The expectations in terms of margins being reasonable and decent also adds to the contribution. And again, I think these are all long drawn out projects. So I think once these projects are even announced, to execute them take a few years. However, I think with the existing order book and as the execution keeps on happening on a piecemeal basis, the revenue recognition that keeps on happening onto the balance sheet ensures visibility. The capital outlay has been strong. And obviously, let's not forget the export opportunity. Now, within the shipbuilders itself, shipbuilders and repairs, I think the government is pretty clear on both these aspects put together, including the budgetary support coming in for both these elements within the shipbuilding industry, which probably augurs well because once you probably get those long-term contracts, the servicing probably also happens in terms of their shipyards, which are obviously a higher margin and a better accretive business as far as cash flows are concerned. Valuations can always be a case of argument, but again, I think if there is one sector which looks structurally well placed with a very decent expectations in terms of double-digit earnings growth, I think this sector probably stands out. So anybody holding these stocks should continue.
Great. We'll leave it there for the morning. Mayuresh, thank you so much for joining us. As always, good chatting with you, especially when so much is in flux. And we'll leave you with some of those winners in the markets this morning. Keep an eye on the Nifty, still down about 0.5%. We'll come back for market closing at 3 p.m.
Presented by National Stock Exchange.
Look, this investment guru's tips will double your money. Just claim the offer.
Double your money from any random group. Pay attention. Promising double returns, they'll lure you in tight. Unverified groups will send fake tips overnight, emptying your pockets before you can fight.
Well said! Well said! Well said!
SEBI and NSE advise consult only SEBI registered advisors and make payments only to verified accounts or UPI IDs. An investor awareness initiative by SEBI and NSE.
One person who didn't seem to like your speech to Davos was President Trump.